for money? Because you'll get a ton more money there. But do you sacrifice regionality? Because let's be real, the WCC, albeit is a very weak conference, top to bottom, is a very regional conference. There is no long flights. It is very California heavy. Would you sacrifice that for a giant paycheck from the Big 12? There's no right or wrong answer. So I'll start off with Jackson. We'll start off with Jackson, and whoever wants to jump in after that, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. Gonzaga needs to make the move. The Big 12 commissioner has expressed that basketball is their main interest. They want to be the best basketball conference. It just makes sense. I think the Big 12 would take care of them more than other teams with scheduling. Maybe they'll get a little lucky along the way. I'm not sure Gonzaga wants to join a tougher conference. I mean, they're winning free championships every year, but they haven't won a national championship yet. And joining a better conference, especially the Big 12, you can finish eighth in that league, and you'll have a better shot to win the national championship just because you're in game shape against tournament teams. They're not getting that right now. They need to make the move for sure.
I think from a Gonzaga perspective, 1,000% you do that. No question, because I think that goes back to what Jackson's saying and what I was saying before, that the reason that they have high quality teams with Jalen Suggs and Chet Holmgren and all of these guys come through and have very little to show tournament success to show for it is because of that conference. So I think if you're Gonzaga and you move to the Big 12, I think you're winning a championship within the next decade. But I don't think that the Big 12 is going to let that happen. And the reason for that is football, which stems from the main reason that anything happens in college sports, which is money. I do not think Gonzaga doesn't have a football team. I think that absolutely kills them. There was talk of adding Gonzaga and UConn as basketball-only members. I would have absolutely loved that. That would be a basketball super conference, the likes of which we've never seen. I think it would have been great for the game. I think it would have been incredibly entertaining. But I think logistically it didn't work great. And it just would not have happened because the main driver is football, which is unfortunate, but I think that's just what it is.
I fully agree with Brett on this point. I mean, the conference realignment that's going to be, I mean, it's already happened in the last couple of years with the moves from the Pac-12 to the Big 10 and the Big 12, respectively. Gonzaga is not going to move to the Big 12. They're not a football school. They don't have a football team. The money would be a huge factor if they were to receive an invite, but I don't even think they would receive an invite in the first place. Also, when it comes to on-court success, they've made 2 title games from the West Coast Conference. I don't think basketball success is necessarily going to be any better if you're in the Big 12. If you're a program like Gonzaga going to the Big 12, you're probably not finishing much above 500 most years. And I think you can probably get a better seed in the NCAA tournament year in, year out, running the table in the WCC. But if the Big 12 commissioner, if he were to extend an invite to Gonzaga, I think they would absolutely accept. But I just don't see that happening.
Well, good deal. That was just a good discussion there, guys. So now we'll talk about the Horizon League briefly, as I said I would. Horizon League is doing great. Purdue, Fort Wayne leading the way right now. The Mastodons doing great. 13-3, holding a victory over the likes of DePaul, Northern Arizona. Lost a game to San Francisco, Pitt, and Wright State. Probably shouldn't have lost that one to Wright State. Looking for their first bid in their program history. Oakland out of Michigan, which can be confusing. Oakland's doing well. Cleveland State's always doing well. Got a good program there. Green Bay is doing great. The Phoenix are doing really well this year after going 3-29 last year. They are 9-8 this year. So they look for them to make some noise here and so forth. So, and then you also got Wright State, who always finds a way to make the tournament. Youngstown State, the Penguins, Northern Kentucky, one of the best mascots, the Norse. You got Milwaukee, Robert Morris, IUPUI, and very surprising one here at the bottom, and Detroit Mercy at 0-17. So Horizon League's doing their thing, being a fun conference there. And we'll move on there to the Maction. They're always a fun conference. They get an auto bid. The Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. You wouldn't believe it, guys. St. Peter's is in the lead right now. Could we see the Peacocks maybe make their way back into the tournament, strutting their way to glory? I hope to see so, as I love that story, and I know many people did. Fairfield, Quinnipiac, Marist, Mount St. Mary's, Niagara, Siena, Canisius, the Golden Griffins, Iona. Iona got FDU's Fairleigh Dickinson's former coach, Tobin Anderson, starting off a little rough there at 6-9, but so far the action is a lot of fun so far this year, and now the Big Sky's doing their thing, and since this podcast has been a while, I wanted to get everyone's thoughts on the Big Sky, but full transparency, it's kind of late, so we're not going to do that right now, but we'll do that another time. But now we'll talk about each person's favorite mid-major, and I didn't give a limit to it. I feel that everyone can have their own amount, so I will say mine first, and then we'll go to Jackson. My favorite mid-majors are Pepperdine. I just love that program, even though it hates me. And I'm not saying that it actually does. They just don't put any effort towards basketball. Go Waves. Gardner Webb's a great one. I remember I woke up one day and I watched them play, and they won the Big South to make it to the tournament, and they gave Virginia everything they had, and they led at halftime, I believe, and it was a really good tournament game versus a 1 versus a 16. So you don't get those terribly often. So I love them running Bulldogs. LaSalle, the Explorers. How could you not love them? You can see a lot of improvement out of LaSalle this year. And of course, University of California, Santa Barbara, the Gauchos, always making their way for the Big West title, always pushing their way towards a title bid and whatnot. So for the Big West, of course, and love the Gauchos. So Jackson, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let you talk about your favorite mid-majors.
Yeah, I have a long history with Florida Gulf Coast. They have been a favorite of mine since I was a child, since I've grown up over here during the summer and springs. I had the pleasure of watching them beat FAU. That was a great game. That's really the only success they've seen since making the tournament back in like 2018, 2017. I hope they do well, but they're not doing great. Along with that, just since I was at their game, I would just like to say this because I've never heard worse speakers at a game in my life. If you are at a Division I program, fix your speakers. Make recruits want to come play there. There's no way recruits go on visits to some of these stadiums and they're like, yeah, I want to hear my ears get destroyed while I'm playing basketball. That's got to get fixed. Next, Colgate. Colgate has only made the tournament 6 times, but they are 0-6. The last three tournaments they played Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Texas. I've watched the selection show every year. They're making their brackets. They're like, Colgate's going to be the team to upset them this year. It's going to be Colgate. Every year they fall short. This might be the year where they're the 15 seed that upsets the 2 seed. We'll see. I hope it happens, but those are the 2 mid-majors that I love dearly.
Yeah, so my favorite mid-major is just kind of all over the place. I want to give a special shout out to 2 Big Sky schools that I grew to love just from researching the teams when we were starting to get into Big Sky basketball. I want to give a shout out to Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado. Northern Arizona specifically, because I don't know, I like their mascot. They're Lumberjacks. I think that's really cool. Also, just some great names on that team. Northern Arizona has got Oakland Fort, which is one of my all-time favorite names. It just sounds really fun to say. Northern Colorado, also great Big Sky program. Went through that roster to try to find some fun names on there. They've got a lot of players from overseas. I think they have a guy from England, a couple Aussies, and they've got a guy that went to high school with Brett Riemann. And then I want to
shout out to Jalen Page, best basketball player I've ever seen play live. He does not get enough minutes. I want to have a talk with the coach about that. But yeah, go Bears. I have them on my list too.
Good shit. Maybe my favorite mid-major is kind of an odd pick. I don't know. They're not really a mid-major. They're not in a Power 6 conference, but they're a very notable program. No, it's not DePaul. It's the Memphis Tigers. I've had a love for Memphis for a really long time. I mean, I'm a Grizzlies fan, so there's that connection there. But the big thing is because when I would play NCAA 14 growing up, I would always pick Memphis. I think I won like 6 or 7 consecutive national titles with Memphis. Cool vibes all around. I always liked their uniforms, like the tiger stripes going down it. Just I like Penny a lot too. Like he's starting to get something going there now. Had some great recruiting classes in the past, but now they're doing some work in the transfer portal. I was highly questionable of their move to get Javon Quinterly. Not a big Quinterly fan. As an Auburn fan, I don't think any Auburn fans are enjoyers of Javon Quinterly. But they're getting going there. They're back in the top 25. Things are looking really up for the Tigers. Maybe they can make a run at the AAC title this year. I certainly hope so. But those are my top 3.
Yeah, my 3 teams. I've got a little bit of recency bias, so I have Utah State, James Madison, despite them losing this weekend, and Princeton. All these teams have exactly one loss. Utah State, big win over Colorado State this weekend. I've been impressed with them, and I think they're the clear favorite in the Mountain West right now, despite the fact that that's a pretty wide open conference most years. James Madison, they took a tough loss this weekend, but they've had 2 very impressive wins. The first one was at Michigan State in the first game of the year. The second game, they played on the road at Kent State. That could have been a game that they lost after that big win at Michigan State. They were down 5 with under 4 seconds to play, and then they stormed back with a crazy bucket, steal, and another bucket to force overtime, and they win in overtime. Really pulling for the Dukes this year, and I think they can make some noise as a double-digit seed in March in the tourney. My third team is Princeton. They have 1 loss. It was a 4-point loss on the road at St. Joe's, and otherwise they've been really impressive. I'm really impressed with Xavier Lee. He's probably the best player in the Ivy League right now. He barely played last year. He's a sophomore, and now he's their clear star, and he's just a great athlete and a great player all around. And shout out to Caden Pierce, one of their best players as well, brother of Alec Pierce for the Indianapolis Colts. So he's going to be a good player as well. I think that Princeton team, they made the Sweet 16 last year. They could easily make the tournament again this year. I think the Ivy League is theirs until proven otherwise.
All right, I'll go ahead and disagree with Nick. Absolutely no bias because my brother goes to Cornell. But one of my teams is Cornell. I love watching Cornell play because their entire basketball philosophy is we're just going to go ahead and not play defense, but we'll just make more threes than you and win. And sometimes that works, and that is just incredibly entertaining basketball to watch. I'm also a huge fan of the Ivy League in general because there's no scholarships, no NIL going on in there. It's just pure basketball. So